What up, everyone? Just let me know if the voice comes through. God bless. God bless. So we were waiting on. I think everyone is here. So this is sociology presentation: climate change and capitalism. Perspectives from the anti-globalization movement. You know how it is. Globalization. It's based on the reading from Naomi Klein. This changes everything. If you guys have any questions, leave it in the comments. Subscribe, leave a like. You know how it is. Yeah, climate change isn't real. We'll go over that in a bit. Don't worry about. Don't worry about that. Let's hop into this. So pretty much the overview is that Naomi Klein is pretty much stating that climate change is a crisis leading towards a disaster and that everything will change, whether by force or nature or by our choice. What that pretty much means is that she has a general idea that everything is going to be changing, doesn't matter because of climate change, and we need to be more prepared for that. So pretty much Naomi Klein, after attending a climate meeting, she pretty much described it in the first bit of her reading as a right-wing think tank that basically doesn't believe in climate change. So there's a couple people that don't believe climate change actually is a thing. They believe that it's just a naturally occurring process and men's activities have nothing to do with it. And she kind of blames this on like the neoliberal world order, saying that they want to cling to power and they have pretty much various strategies on how to like say, oh, climate change isn't real, and how that climate change is just a big hoax. Pretty much, many neoliberals believe that climate change is a hoax designed to take freedom away and turn democracies into Marxist, socialistic societies. That's what her pretty much overview and pretty much the opposition's overview is of the reading. So her main point over in the reading is capitalism and climate change. During the reading, she states that it's not about carbon, it's about capitalism. Naomi Klein wants to just suggest that the only reason climate change is a thing is capitalism. And if capitalism wasn't around, then pretty much climate change wouldn't be as bad as it is. Funny enough that how it is. So pretty much Klein highlights how capitalism is to blame, suggesting the most profound threat to humanity is the war our economic model is waging against life on Earth. Klein states that neoliberals know that the global economy relies on burning of fossil fuels, and to change would require heavy government interference on business, leading to the end of neoliberalism. Pretty much, she states that neoliberals don't want this because it would lead to the end of them overall. She pretty much states that, if we add taxes, if we add penalties for violation on big polluters, and we have more government interference, it's just going to end neoliberals, which they're not going to like it. So climate change affects the poor more than the rich. Klein suggests that neoliberals have very little motivation to change. The thing is, the most wealthiest countries in the world, they know that climate change will literally cook them, leaving the US to rise like a phoenix from the flames of global warming. That's a literal quote from her reading, suggesting that, the wealthy countries are well off. They don't really have a reason to worry. They can just pour their money into surviving. Their problem isn't with climate change. They are okay with surviving. They believe that it's okay, we could just extract as many, resources from the earth as much as possible, and we'll be okay with that. Klein argues that humans don't cause climate change collapse, and nor does carbon. The problem is the particular arrangement of these elements. In other words, capitalism, the whole point of which is to find resources and to exploit them. That's her main thing about capitalism. Now, when we go to Dylan pointed out Naomi Klein doesn't even support a carbon tax. That's the funny thing. She doesn't offer any solutions in her reading whatsoever about climate change and what we can do. So Klein suggests sweeping change is required to avoid a climate change catastrophe, run against the grain of our existing profit-based economic model, and are not in the financial interests of a wealthy and powerful elite who dominate politics and shape mainstream political discourse. What that pretty much means is that she believes that no one wants to avoid a catastrophe. They just want to get rich quick, and once they have their wealth, they don't really care about the environment or what's around them. So pretty much what she proposes is we must think outside the dominant economic and ideological model of free market capitalism, outside our carbon-intensive lifestyles. If you know that about a young lady by the name of Greta Thunberg, that one that cries a lot, the one that cries a lot, what she pretty much says is that we want to achieve, real zero. Like, our carbon emissions, we have to make them as little as possible. I think she's a crybaby, and I don't really think I agree with her, because real zero would mean the end of the world by itself, and everything would kind of stop. So, and paper straws are a myth, and they shouldn't be actually used. Plastic straws are the best tasting straws, in my opinion, as well. So, so pretty much outside of our deeply arranged cultural assumptions that we can control and exploit nature as an endless resource. That's what many capitalists think, and a lot of neoliberals and conservatives would agree. That's what Naomi Klein pretty much clings to this entire reading. She pretty much states that, capitalism, these are the people that are not allowing for change to happen. And she pretty much suggests that climate change will make them change at the end of the day. So here's my first question of the day. Many conservatives and neoliberals believe that the government should not interfere with climate change. Do you agree or disagree? So like I stated before, that the capitalists and conservatives and neoliberals don't want the government to interfere. They do not want the government to interfere whatsoever. Like I said, according to Greta Thunberg, extremists should intervene. They believe that the government should intervene if we want a chance to survive. Klein also believes that a Marshall Plan is in need to combat the climate change. Neoliberal is not a made-up word. Neoliberal. She uses it a lot in her reading. So pretty much neoliberalism is used to define market-oriented reform policies such as eliminating price controls, deregulating capital markets. It's pretty much people who don't want government interference. They would rather no government interference. So staff suggests that I believe that human activity is so low that we aren't the cause of climate change. Now, that's an interesting point, because the thing is, she does point that out, that at the end of the day, the neoliberals and the conservatives, they will say that there is no hard proof that showed that there's a massive change. It's something that is there, and it's something that it's like a repeating cycle, so there's no worry for it. By raising carbon tax, it would necessarily destroy jobs and the economy, which is true. Feel free to give me a call if you want to debate this on the live stream. It'll be pretty interesting to see what you guys have to say. And have someone else other talking than me. Like, Stav is pointing out that if you stop carbon emissions, what's the point? What kind of life is that? The funny thing is, Naomi Klein suggests that we do a Marshall Plan. What a Marshall Plan is that we pretty much give technology to combat climate change, but to build that kind of technology would require more carbon emission, which is kind of a looping. What's the word I'm looking for? It goes in a loop. Alright, so we got our first caller. Let's see what the Stav has to say. You're on the air, Stav.
What's going on?
Just chilling. You know how it is. Livestream.
Okay, hold on. Let me mute you through the computer so it's not too okay. What I have to say is basically like I pretty much said it in the group chat, but everyone says like, oh, we need to lower carbon emission, all that. And they're like, oh, we got to find technology and we got to find different methods to do that. But they don't realize that all that technology, all that stuff that we need to find takes carbon. We need carbon to fuel those systems to work. You know what I mean? Like, how do we get energy through all those type of machines that give us energy? You know what I mean? And all that takes gas, takes different machines and stuff. So all that fuels, like, you know what I mean? Like all that stuff.
Because the funny thing is, even in the reading, Naomi Klein pretty much suggests that, you know what, like, if we're going to be polluting, we need to build technologies and pretty much go in the route to find a solution. That's what the Marshall Plan is. She suggests we give technology to these people and say, oh, here's technology to help combat climate change. But at the end of the day, how are you going to get that technology? Not only is it going to be expensive, but it's going to pollute more, which is like, It's like a fallacy in itself.
Exactly. And I was also reading myself, it was basically saying that, like, this is a repetition, right? The Earth has had this millions and thousands of years ago, you know what I mean? And it's a repetition, it's happening, and they were saying how scientifically proven is showing that 1.4 something degrees every couple of years. I don't remember exactly what it was. But basically it was saying that even if human activity, like carbon, everything is shut down and we're all, like nothing, there's no pollution, it will still go up by 1 degree. But then you got to think about it. Like what kind of life that's going to be. You know what I mean? Like
100%,
if we stop
100%.
all the cars, all the businesses that use all that stuff, what kind of life are we going to be living? And especially doing it that drastically, that fast, like this world won't work like that. And I'm sure many people are not willing to give up what they have now.
See, the thing is, what even Klein suggests is that she wants to achieve actual zero for carbon emissions. Like Greta Thunberg said this in a video, that she wants to achieve an actual zero. If that were true, the entire world economy would just stop.
Economy, and there's no way. In our lifetime, there's no way. We can start, sure. Mm-hmm. We can start, but there's no way that in our lifetime we'll be able to hit zero.
Exactly. No it's not possible. It's not possible.
It's not realistic. That's the way you gotta go. You gotta go realistic. You can't just say like you go to, you know what I mean? Like you go to the gym and you're like, okay, I'm gonna lose 40 pounds in a week. But this is your first time going to the gym. You can't. Every person that personal trainer will tell you that's not realistic. We can go 2 pounds, 3 pounds a week, yes. But there's no way you can stop right away. You know what I mean? You gotta get in the mindset. Yeah. You gotta start planning stuff. You can't just say zero and like 2050?
Yeah, something like they want net zero in the next like 2050, which is insane. The funny thing is, Dylan's favorite person, I say this ironically, Ben Shapiro, stated that you can't really say anything to children. You can't really say anything to them. She just likes yelling at the adults, and these liberals like to put that on a platform as, wow, look at this kid, she's yelling at adults. But what is the solution? Exactly. Paper straws and real zero?
Exactly.
If anyone else wants to give their opinion, feel free to call. Feel free to say it in the group chat. It'd be pretty interesting to see what anyone else has to say. But I'll be moving on.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Stav, for the call.
No problem.
Anyways, moving on. The reality of climate change. So, this in itself, Klein suggests only massive change will make a difference and is no longer about only changing light bulbs or using paper straws. She suggests a Marshall Plan, like I stated before. Either we leap or we sink. That, according to Naomi Klein, she's saying that, you know what, it's a wake-up call and this is what it is. Many activists suggest achieving actual zero, like we've been talking about. They don't know what they're talking about. So I'm going to be playing a video, and the video showcases certain economic struggles of individuals. Klein uses them as leverage for social justice. Climate change affects them the most, and it's kind of pretty interesting to see, so I will be going here.
The majority of the human race does not see global warming as a serious threat. Celebrate! Climate legislation is dead.
We, in the global north, with less than 20% of the population, are responsible for over 70% of global emissions.
We are drilling all over the place.
On the other side of the world, those people who are the most affected by climate change, most affected by environmental injustice, have the least responsibility for creating this crisis in the first place.
The amount of fossil fuel that we're combusting year on year is growing. We're going in completely the wrong direction.
I've spent 6 years wandering through the wreckage caused by the carbon in the air and the economic system that put it there.
That old paradigm will be forced to change, either by the environment around us or by us.
We see communities who are thrown into the front line. You see the incredible transformation. They become stronger, they stand up.
So here's the big question. What if global warming isn't only a crisis? What if it's the best chance we're ever going to get to build a better world? Change or be changed?
There are limits. Let's celebrate the limits because we can reinvent a different future.
So that was the video. Any thoughts, concerns about the video? It's a pretty interesting take on what's actually happening outside of the Western civilization and the reality of climate change and how it impacts certain individuals. So Naomi Klein likes to point out that climate change is linked to the struggle for economic and social justice. You can kind of see in the video that some people, their livelihood is being changed by climate change as a whole. Exactly, yeah. She's pretty much, like Dylan is pointing out, she's pretty much saying that global warming is good because it means the end of capitalism. That's her entire stance. Her entire stance is, you know what, we have climate change, but it's going to be the end of capitalism, so it's good. Her entire thing is we shouldn't allow this to happen and things are going to be changing. So it's essentially what's happening is the people that are outside of this Western civilization are being brought together in a shared struggle to save their communities and environments. So that is what it is. Moving on to the next slide. So this is the opposition point. This is for the people that, you know, don't believe in climate change. They think it's a massive hoax. It shouldn't be here. We shouldn't be worried. Like the very, very popular Ben Shapiro. I said I was going to have a video from him. I'm not going to disappoint. So the thing is, neoliberals, like Steven Crowder, Ben Shapiro, they rely on facts and they don't rely on feelings. They like to suggest that changes to climate are very subtle. They are uncertain and contested and survivable. That's their main point. Their main point being that, you know what, we can survive. We don't really need to worry. And Naomi Klein points this out time and time again in her reading, suggesting that these people don't care, that these people are going to be the downfall of everyone else because they just don't accept it. By letting the government intervene, these neoliberals pretty much believe that they are neglecting the rights of a free individual. That's what it all comes down to. They don't want governments to intervene in business, yet let alone in life. even neoliberals and conservatives and capitalists who believe that climate change is a real thing, they believe that successful mitigation must also mix in an acceptable moral and political philosophy to win a global political struggle. The stance of Jordan B. Peterson, he believes that, you know what, he doesn't think that people can actually work together to find a solution to global warming or climate change. No one has even come up with a solid solution yet. The solution, like we've been talking about, real zero, absolute zero, no one has a concrete solution. So Klein pretty much suggests that ending the fossil fuel dominance over everyone else, however, the solution is not practical. She wants fossil fuels to end. She wants capitalism to just end. She doesn't want it here anymore. And pretty much essentially states that if we were to move away from fossil fuels to renewable energy, and we'll have a better environment around us. So like I wrote here on my slide, Klein focuses on neoliberalism and the climate change denial movement. It suggests it to be overthrown to mitigate solutions to climate change. She suggests that, you know what, we should just overthrow these people's opinions, we should just work together and find a solution. However, it's not practical. At the end of the day, it's not practical. Because even if you do remove all the fossil fuels, even if you do remove capitalism and the free market, what end up happening is it will just revamp. And there will be so many political, economic, commercial processes that will just die in this transition. It is not as simple as obliterating neoliberalism. That's what it comes down to. And I'll show this slight clip of the opposition so you guys can get a feeling of what's actually happening and how the opposition likes to rebut.
My question is about climate change. So if I remember correctly, I heard you once say in a video that you do believe that human activity does have some sort of effect on the climate. So one, I would just like you to explain a little bit of your understanding of climate change.
Sure.
And another question is, are there any government policies that you would support in terms to mitigate carbon emissions?
Okay, so my perspective on climate change is, number one, I'm not a climatologist, but accepting the IPCC reports, you have to take into account the fact that the modeling has been wrong for 20 to 30 years. It's always been overestimating the amount of climate change that's actually taken place. But virtually every reputable scientist, including folks who are called skeptics, believe that the climate is warming. There's an argument about as to how much, and that over 50% of that warming is probably attributable to human activity. Now that raises other questions, which is, okay, so let's say the Earth is warming. What kind of damage is that actually going to do? And this is a serious question, right? Let's say that the Earth is warming and we're causing it. Does that mean that it's the day after tomorrow and massive floods in New York and Dennis Quaid running around with Jake Gyllenhaal trying to avoid the freeze? No, it doesn't, right? It means that over the course of the next 100 years that the water level is going to rise a rather predictable number of inches or feet, and then humans will migrate based on those weather patterns, as humans have done since human beings became human beings and started walking on 2 feet. I'm a little more sanguine about the possibility of long-term climate change than a lot of the catastrophists who seem to assume that there's going to be tremendous damage done. I'll talk, for example, about the storms are becoming that more severe and they're doing that much more damage. The statistics really don't back that up. What they really back up is that we're just building more stuff in the path of hurricanes, that we're building more expensive stuff in the path of hurricanes. And so when the storms break that stuff, then it's more expensive for us to fix that stuff. Because the number of hurricanes actually hasn't changed markedly over time. And when folks say the intensity of hurricanes has changed, what they really mean is that the amount of cost associated with the hurricane has changed. As far as what should be done about that, well, the biggest problem that you have is a serious collective action problem. Let's assume that you really think that there's a huge problem. You still have to decide whether you believe, let's put it this way, what level of climate change requires what level of cutbacks in terms of the global economy. So there's a fellow whose name escapes me right now who just won the Nobel Prize in Economics who legitimately made his entire career out of studying the economics of climate change. When does he think that intervention economically is called for? He says that until he believes that over the next century there's 3.5 degrees centigrade of climate change, that intervention actually would be counterproductive. It would cost more to intervene than it would to actually allow the damage to take place and just cope with it, because the economy is going to continue to grow over time. So I don't see any reason why I think that I would know better than he does.
It's also a basic fact that the only countries that have really been abiding by any of the attempts to reduce climate change have been extraordinarily developed countries. Developing countries have no interest in sacrificing their own people at the altar of climate change, and the number one reducer in emissions over the past year was actually the United States. And the United States pulls out of the Paris Accords. The Paris Accords, by the way, did nothing. They were completely useless. It was basically sign a piece of paper saying you don't like climate change. Okay, fine, I signed it, yay. And then everybody says, oh, we solved climate change. No, you didn't. What does solve climate change is technological progress. And technological progress has led to a reduction in carbon emissions in the United States. It will not lead to a reduction in carbon emissions in developing countries for another 10 to 15 years, including places like China. So it's a complex issue, and all the folks who are basically like, let's just kill capitalism. And good luck with that.
Thank you.
So that was the opposition, notably Ben Shapiro. You guys have any comments, concerns about what he was stating? Like, he pointed out at the end of his video that some people like, just the end of capitalism. And funny enough, we have a call from Dylan himself. Let's see what he has to say. Dylan, you are on the air with my live stream.
Yeah, so he said some interesting things. So the one thing that stood out to me was he said that the economic cost of 3.5 degrees centigrade increase over the next, I don't know what the time frame was, would cost less just to do nothing and let the economy grow over time. I'm not so sure I agree with that, mostly because the effects of climate change aren't spread out evenly. So there are studies which show that like a country like Canada will actually benefit economically from increased temperatures because it will open up the north more. It will open up the Northwest Passage, allow for more trade to come through to Canada. But the upshot of that is that warmer places, more tropical places, I'm thinking like India, Pakistan, the Middle East, Africa, will all be hit incredibly hard by these increases because of how things are spread apart, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is now those people become refugees and they have to go someplace.
Mm-hmm.
And what happens is that a lot of the refugee crisis that's happening now is a climate crisis. It's people being pushed away from their homes into conflict, and it causes more problems economically than actually dealing with the problem. I feel like the problem is that people are focusing on the wrong things as the response, but I don't think Ben Shapiro was really that interested in going into that. He's more interested in saying, what we're doing is fine, we need to stay the course, and I feel like that's the wrong answer too.
I mean, anyone that does, no one has a practical solution. Not a single person that I've seen has a practical solution. Even if you like,
practical solution.
Because the thing is, like let's say for example, if you look at let's say the paper straw thing, that's not gonna help. Let's use less water.
No,
I mean, realistically, the less water is not gonna help.
Doesn't have anything to do with climate change, though. Like, that's a completely different issue. That's about pollution. That's about
but see, those things is that's what even Klein is suggesting that what. Everyone has a part to play. Like, everyone individually can make a difference. What Shapiro is saying is he's saying that, like, these people that are pushing for the end of capitalism, they don't know what they're talking about. Like, he's suggesting that, when it comes down to it, it's letting go of, we need to let individuals make their choices about technology within free markets. That's what his entire stance is.
My view of markets isn't like, let people make their choice within it, but let the market find the solution. But acknowledge that there's a problem. Acknowledge that markets will have to be part of that. So as a government, you need to have policy that encourages development.
My question is about climate change.
Put in a carbon tax with a rebate to taxpayers so that the price of that, so that the economic hardship isn't felt by those consumers, it's felt by the companies that are investing in carbon.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you need to move people away. You need to give people a gentle push away from carbon into better solutions.
Yeah.
Once people have electric vehicles, I don't feel like a lot of people are going to go back to gas. Like once the cost benefit comes in favor of electricity versus gasoline, it's just not there yet.
But I mean, even if you do look at that comparison, even Tesla, what they're doing now is they're charging people to get this energy that's supposed to be free. Even people that are now buying Teslas, they have to say, we are going to pay to get this energy for those Tesla pumps and everything like that. At the end of the day, you are still, like they say all over the world, you are still paying for your lunch somehow, right? You are still paying for something somehow. That, it's not completely, we're going to reduce carbon emissions but at what cost? Like, what's the economic toll going to be on that?
No, for sure. You need to take into account the economic factors. But I feel like listen to economists on the topic who will advocate for carbon taxes, who will advocate for green energy subsidies. I feel like they're more right than wrong on the issue. And I want to let you get on with your presentation. I might call in later, though, if I have anything else to say.
Yeah, exactly. So, like, it's a good time to call in because, like, you just heard the opposition. You have the facts. I'm going to be moving into my...
I'm not the opposition. I'm not on Naomi Klein's side either.
Exactly. The thing is, we have to think about these things critically, right?
I'm just the radical centrist in the room. Anyway, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna let you go.
All right. Thank you for the call.
Yeah. See you, man.
Anyway, so I'm gonna be moving to my last question here. So, according to Naomi Klein, climate change is severely changing everything. It's written in her things, and she believes that. So, given the current global economy, do you agree that climate change is changing everything? Do you agree that this changes everything, that climate change is the main reason and it is changing everything? Feel free to call. Feel free to leave an answer in the chat as well. So, so anyways, I'll answer this question, I guess, myself, stating that, like a lot of you said in the chat before, that climate change isn't as bad as is set out to be. Accordingly to what Klein says, Klein focuses on resolution of challenges to climate change. And she says that at the rate of what's happening, things will change. But at the same time, it's funny why she says that. She's advocating for the most radical changes, like ending capitalism and ending all these things. So, pretty much, at the rate of its changing arts connections to the energy economy and all other aspects of modern life, mitigation of climate change relies heavily on what we think are its causes and how energy must change. So, that being said, the final question that I have for you guys here is, how much of a threat is climate change in your opinion? Should we be worried? Like Naomi Klein pretty much states that not only is it affecting all these small people in the West, it's affecting everyone, and all we have to be a movement together to have some sort of change that is actually occurring. Yeah. So feel free to say, leave it in the chat or give me a call about the final questions. And if but that being said, that's the end of my presentation. Thank you guys for joining. It's been a pleasure. See you during the exam.